Hello there, YouTube. Greetings and salutations. Devin here again, bringing you another cool video on 1907 pattern bayonets. Particularly the 1907 pattern bayonets used in World War I. And I'm talking just the models, not the variances of the same bayonet. Because I actually have 4 different versions of different 1907 pattern bayonets, all intended different models enough to be considered their own version. They really weren't used by anybody else, so to speak, but they are all Commonwealth country bayonets, and we're going to test them all, how good they are at their penetrating power on this nice chilled raw chicken breast, which seems to be the test that I like to consistently go with based on what it feels like to stab real people. It seems to be the most consistent. Everyone's like, you could use ballistic gel or anything like that, but that doesn't quite have the muscle fiber kind of aspect. Ballistic gel works really good for bullets and stuff like that, but this has the muscle fibers, which is the hard part for a knife blade to get through. So first things first, we're going to talk about what probably most people know as the best 1907 bayonet, the best known one, and that is the British pattern 1907 bayonet. So this is my original one right here, with its original matching sheath. This one was actually an American produced one. It's a very early produced one. It was made in September of 1915. It's actually the rarest one you can get is a Remington made one. The Remington made ones, they only made about 100,000 of them, which makes it the rarest kind of long pattern 1907 bayonet. As you can see, the two-tone blade, it has the little it's very kind of faint on there, but it is got the Remington in the circle and the model 1907, and then the month and the year it was produced. It's on there, it's just kind of hard to see. It was approved for service. It has the broad arrow mark on the opposite side of the ricasso here. Based off of the Japanese Type 30 bayonet, which would be famous all the way through World War II, the British based the 1907 bayonet after they realized that in combination with the short magazine, the Enfield, the 1903 pattern bayonet, which we'll kind of see something that's based off of the 1903 bayonet here a little later in this video, would give them a significant reach disadvantage compared to other soldiers of the day, such as the French with the label that was 52 inches long, and their bayonet, being over a foot long and stuff like that. And the Germans pretty much the same thing, having a 52-inch rifle with a very, very long bayonet. The British with a 45-inch rifle and a 12-inch bayonet were grossly outmatched by that. So basically, they decided to just add knives. So you have an 18-inch blade here on this 1907 pattern bayonet, and it would be used basically all the way through World War II. It is a pretty gold standard for bayonet. They're known for breaking off. They do quite well. It has on both sides this fuller, or as a lot of the boomer fuds call it, a blood groove, which it doesn't actually do anything to help with the blood. It just kind of lightens the blade and stuff like that. So we're gonna try to push it through this chicken breast here now, and we're gonna see how easily it goes through. Now I'm gonna put it through the toughest part of the chicken breast, the thickest part, because I know this one's gonna perform well, where I have some others that I know perform pretty worse here at the end of the day. So minimal effort, right through, snags right through it like it's nothing, doesn't catch on anything, pulls out really nice and clean, goes through really easy. Credit to the Japanese, they based this blade shape and style off of katanas and traditional swordsmanship of their country, and the British applied that when they basically directly copied the 1930 bayonet into this. So we'll set that off the side. Obviously used in World War I, made famous by World War I in the SMLE. Quite happy there with the Tommies. So now we're going to move on to the other 1907 pattern bayonet. Now this is a kind of lesser known variant, not a lot of people know about it. This is the India pattern 1907 bayonet. India never adopted the long 1907 pattern bayonet as far as how they would manufacture them. Their model was always a little different. It remained based off of the 1903 bayonet, which is what the 1907 bayonet replaced. The 1903 bayonet was a double-sided kind of dagger style bayonet. It came down to a point. It had kind of a ridge on both sides, and it was sharpened on the top and on the bottom surface, and it was only 12 inches long. This blade is only 12 inches long. It is much simpler to manufacture. As you can see, there is no fuller on it, which gives this blade a little bit more strength, and keeps the blade nice and thick. It is not sharpened on the top side. It is more of a clip point rather than being that kind of Tanto style blade, that kind of katana style blade on the 1907. It is actually sharpened here on the tip, on the reverse portion of the blade, for about 2 inches. About that much of the blade up to here is sharpened on the top, and then obviously it is sharpened on the bottom. It's a very, very durable, very, very well-liked bayonet, and it's actually, in regards to a lot of compared to the 1907, the British pattern 1907, it's actually in a lot of ways a much better bayonet. It's much handier, it's not as long, so it's not slapping you in the side or getting caught on as much things when you're walking around not using it, which it's going to be doing the most of the time. It's shorter, it's a little bit more durable, it's a little bit easier to manufacture. And it still performed its job just as well. And this is the bayonet that India would make, obviously, after World War I and stuff like that, and kind of a little bit before World War I too, because the British had a bunch of colonial conflicts and stuff like that. They would have a ton of British pattern 1907 service, but they never made any. This is the bayonet that India would make, and they would continue to use this for quite a long time through World War II. Into the 60s and 70s, you would see this bayonet being used on the Ishapur 2A1, even into the 70s. It's a very, very good knife for what it is. So same attachment method will be compatible with all SMLEs that have that standard kind of nose cap configuration. It'll fit on all of them, all of the #1 Mark III pattern of rifles. So it's a good bayonet. So now we're gonna prop it up. We're gonna put it right next to where, once again, this one's going to be in the meaty part of the bayonet. The meaty part of the chicken breast, just to show you how easy it goes through. And minimal effort, once again, pokes right through. I barely had to push even. Cuts right through the muscle fibers in that chicken breast real easy, pulls out real easy. Nothing to really worry about here. It's a lot shorter, handier, and more durable than the 1907 pattern bayonet, the British pattern 1907 bayonet anyways, and this one was made in February of 1948, just to show you how long they were making this bayonet, because India, once again, never adopted the #4. They stuck it out with the #3 into the 70s. And then, so just a comparison here, I will bring these two bayonets up right next to each other so you can see a length. Put my arm there so it's in the way, that black painted blade, that kind of lacquered blade that India is so famous for. You can see the comparison of the length compared to each other. So same exact handle, cross guard, but as you can see, the blade is just much easier, a little bit less refined, a little bit more crude, but in a good way. Having that reverse sharpened tip helps with the penetration quite a lot. It works out quite well. So now we're going to move into the Commonwealth countries bayonets that aren't for the SMLE. We have the Canadian 1907 pattern bayonet for the Ross 1905 rifle, or the Mark II as it's known in military service. This is known basically as the butter knife or the butter blade. It was supposed to be kind of based off of that German butcher blade style of bayonet, but just done a lot worse. It has that kind of same kind of butcher blade knife tip, but it's universally known for being bad at stabbing, so much so that when the 1907 bayonet that is this same model, it just had a different cross guard to fit on the heavier barrel of the Ross Mark III or 1910 version. That's the one that everyone seems to think blows up all the time, which it doesn't really. So the two 1907 bayonets, there would be one with the cross guard for the 1905 rifle with a smaller diameter ring, because it had a lighter barrel, and then there's the one for the 1910, which I'll show you, but they're both 1907 bayonets, as it says. So as you can see, Ross Rifle Company patented. You might not be able to read it just because of how the camera is focused, but it says Ross Rifle Company, Quebec, patented 1907, because this is the 1907 bayonet. So this one's probably going to do the worst out of all of my bayonets, and yeah, this blade and grip and attachment method would remain exactly the same for the 1910 rifle, but the only difference would be on the 1910 version or Mark III version of the 1907 bayonet would have a different crossguard that had a bigger diameter eye through it for the larger barrel. So we're going to put this through the thinnest, easiest part of the chicken breast, and we're going to see how well it does. And I had to use quite a lot of force to get this through this chicken breast. And as you can see, it holds on quite a lot. It's not a very good design. That's why it was known as the butter knife. It was basically a borderline harmless bayonet. As far as bayonets go, you have to really, really try to force it into somebody. Has a hollow ground edge along the bottom, no edge on the top, and it's actually a lot thinner. So it's about half as thick as the British 1907 bayonet. It's a lot thinner, but once again having no fuller and being a little bit wider. So wider as in this way, not wider as in thickness. But being a little bit wider of a blade, it actually held up quite well. They weren't known for breaking or bending or anything like that, but they were known for being notoriously bad at stabbing. And so now we're going to move on to the Mark III version. Oh, sorry. And this one was made in, where's the number on it? This one was made in August of 1910. So it's a pretty late one. And then we have the Mark III 1907 bayonet used on the Mark III or M10 Ross. Like I said, as you can see here, it has basically the same exact crossguard, same as the same little quillion at the bottom, same exact everything, except for the blade. And the blade shape was actually the same initially on all of these bayonets. They all would have looked just like that initially, but when they were going over to World War I starts and Canada's going over to England to start getting ready to invade into France and stuff like that, to go mobilize into France, they sent the bayonets ahead with some supplies from Canada to the UK over to England, and the English ground them down. After the Canadians said that these bayonets need to be sharpened, they were okay for no war, but they're not good enough for stabbing. And so the British took them and ground them all down. And then when the Canadians got to England, they would be reissued their bayonets, now at this ground down kind of point. And all they did was kind of take some of the belly off that point of the blade and then put a new edge on it. So it gives it this much more kind of needle-like point, in order to help improve the stabbing capabilities of this knife. And it was known to be quite well. Other than that, it's the exact same bayonet, other than, like I said, the larger diameter crossguard here to fit the heavier barrel, and then they ground the belly off this point. So we'll put this right in between the India pattern 1907 bayonet and the Ross Mark II or 1905 pattern bayonet. We'll see how easy this one goes in. This one goes in real easy, once again. Much easier than that 1905 blade, comes out real easy, minimal effort. If I just stab this in again, right through, and as you can see, it slides right off, comes out real easy because of this, just by changing the blade geometry just a little bit. And they didn't change the thickness, they didn't change the width, they just ground a little bit of that belly off to make this point a little bit easier to get into something. And it works quite well, and until obviously this was not really used. A lot of bayonets were put on rifles, but not really used. There wasn't that many bayonet deaths in World War I, despite a lot of people seeing everyone having their bayonets on like all of the time in World War I. There's actually very few bayonet deaths. But this bayonet was well liked. It was short, it was handy, it was good for opening cans, good for opening rations, good for using as a tool, because it obviously wasn't as long as the British 1907 pattern bayonet. It didn't get in the way in your equipment as much, and it was still a very robust design. So, hopefully you all enjoyed this video. You learned something cool about 1907 pattern bayonets, because they're all very interesting. So this 1907 bayonet, my Mark III one, does not have a manufacture date on it, actually, but it would have been manufactured after obviously 1910 after the adoption of the Ross Mark III because it has the crossguard for it. But it's still a Ross Rifle Company, Quebec patented 1907 design. And this one was issued a couple times. It was issued to Rifle 823 at one point, and it was also issued to Rifle 421 at one point in some kind of armory. So hopefully you like this video and you subscribe if you like this sort of thing. I'm not going to eat this chicken breast because some of these bayonets have left a little bit of dirt on it, but as you can see, this chicken breast is pretty well cleaned through. It's awesome. They work quite well, so if you're ever looking to test something, how good a knife is for stabbing or something like that, this is a very good medium. This or a pork chop or something like that. Steak's kind of expensive. I like chicken because it's real cheap. But it worked out, obviously. Everything except for that Ross 1905 bayonet, they all did quite well. So those are all the different models of 1907 bayonet used by the British and Commonwealth forces of World War I. There's a lot of them. So thank you all for watching. Hopefully you learned something, all that other cool stuff. Hopefully if you like watching me stab chicken breast and stuff like that, that's really, really cool. If you want to help the channel out, I will leave a link to the Patreon down in the description. $1 a month gets you into the Discord, which is a lot cheaper than a lot of other YouTubers and stuff out there. It's a great way to get a hold of me. Help me. I'll help you identify stuff if you need to. It's the only way you could send me pictures to ask for help on things. Or identifying things and stuff like that. And it all goes back into helping support the channel. The goal is to make $100 a month. On Patreon, we're at about 70 still. Been about 70 for about a year. Anyone wants to help me get there, I really, really appreciate it, you all. It helps a ton. Thank you all for stopping by, and hopefully I can see all of you here in the next video. Bye-bye.